Hi friends, welcome back to my reading journal. Today we're settling into my December 2025 reading journal setup, which also marks the very last chapter of my 2025 reading journey. Before we jump into the actual December spreads, I wanted to take a quiet moment to look back and update my annual trackers, because closing out the year feels just as important as starting a new one. First up is my shelfie tracker, where I color in each book as I finish it. In December, I read 7 books, so this page finally feels nice and full. Next up, I'm updating my Goodreads challenge tracker, and this is where things got a little confusing. My journal is ending the year at 94 books read, but Goodreads insists I somehow read 99, so clearly I missed something along the way. I kind of want to trust my journal more than I trust Goodreads, but who knows what happened there. Then we have my alphabet challenge. December was all about the letter D, and while I didn't complete the entire alphabet, I only missed X, Y, and Z, which honestly feels like a win. My book bingo didn't quite make it to a blackout this year. I had 3 prompts left, and I also came up just 1 prompt short on the buzzword readathon. Close, but not quite. My favorite book of December was The Devils, which ended up the year on such an entertaining high note. I didn't make any progress on my series tracker, but I did manage to read 1 book from my physical TBR, which I'm counting as a small victory. I didn't hit my big reading goals this year, but I did want to mark my NetGalley ratio, which landed at 64%, and that feels like a solid place to close things out. So with all that wrapped up, let's turn the page and jump into my December spreads, and gently close the book on 2025. For the second half of 2025, as you already know, I switched into a Neapolitan journal from Archer & Olive, with its mix of white, black, and craft paper. And December just had to land right in that awkward transition where one page is black and the other is white. I always find these spreads a little tricky, especially when it comes to decorating on black paper. Not all stickers or washi show up the way you hope, so it takes a bit of trial and error. To help ground the spread, I created a simple border along the top and bottom using this beautiful washi tape from Simply Gilded. It added just enough contrast and structure without feeling too busy. At first, I really wanted to use this girl pet tape from London Gifties, but once I laid it down, it just didn't stand out the way I imagined on the black paper, and so I ended up changing my mind. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about journaling, letting yourself pivot when something doesn't feel quite right. All the other pet tape you'll see in the spread is also from London Gifties, and it has the coziest, wintry, Christmassy vibes. Perfect for easing into the end of the year. I use my Karen markers to letter out for the month of December. And then I use my white calligraphy ink from Ferris Wheel Press to write out everything else with my nib pen. Now, I do want to note that calligraphy inks are not suitable for fountain pens, and that's why I'm using just a dip pen in this scenario. So please be careful, do not ever put calligraphy inks in your fountain pens. Now, I felt like my top cover page was a little bit empty, so I wanted to add some little snowflakes, and I continued using the calligraphy ink to draw out some little snowflakes here and there. Since the ink takes a little bit to dry out, I was very awkwardly going over, trying not to smudge it or have it all over my hand. Now let's talk a little bit about the books that I read in December and how the month shaped up stats-wise. Like I mentioned earlier, I read 7 books this month. When I broke them down by author gender, 2 were written by male authors and 5 by female authors, which actually surprised me. I tend to read a lot of books by women, so having 2 male authors in a single month felt a little unusual for me. In terms of author nationality, December was wonderfully all over the place. I read 2 authors from the US, 2 from the UK, 1 from Norway, 1 from Libya, and 1 from Japan, which I really love seeing when I look back at my reading stats. 2 of the books included LGBTQ+ representation, which is always something I appreciate and seek out in my reading. Genre-wise, the month was nicely balanced. I read 2 fiction, 2 historical fiction, 1 fantasy, one gothic, and one romance. So a cozy mix with a little bit of everything. My formats leaned heavily toward audio this month. 4 were audiobooks alongside 1 physical book and 2 ebooks, which honestly feels very on brand for December. And finally, ratings-wise, it was a really strong month. 4 books landed at 4 stars and 3 earned 5 stars, which feels like such a satisfying way to wrap up the year. I've been going back and forth on whether I want to create a full 2025 year in review spread. In past years, I've done those big annual summaries, pulling together all of my stats, favorites, and little highlights from the year. And while I always love the finished result, I'll be honest, they're a lot of work. Compiling everything, double-checking numbers, flipping through old spreads, and then trying to give out book awards always feels harder than I expect. Choosing a single best book or narrowing down favorites across an entire year never really feels fair, especially when so many stories mean different things at different times. So I'm not entirely sure yet if I'll do a full awards-style recap again this year, but I do think it would be really nice to at least see all of my annual stats together in one place, just to step back and appreciate the scope of my reading year as a whole. I'm curious, do you do an end-of-the-year summary recap in your reading journal? I would love to hear how you approach it. The first book I read in December was The Ferryman and His Wife by Frode Grytten. Thank you so much to Libro.fm for the ALC. This was my read around the world stop for Norway, and it turned out to be such a quietly beautiful place to begin the month. The story follows Nils Vik, who wakes up one morning already knowing it will be his last day. He moves through his familiar routine and steps onto the ferry that has shaped the entire arc of his life. As he makes this final crossing, people from his past begin to appear. Some stepping out of the woods, some rising from the water, others emerging from old logbooks. Even his long-gone dog returns. Each presence gently nudges him to look again at the moments he lived through, the things he noticed, and the things he missed. And through it all, his heart is fixed on one quiet hope, that his wife Marta will find her way back to him on this last journey. Now you might expect a story about a man preparing for death to feel heavy, but this book is anything but. Grytten turns it into something warm and incredibly tender. Nils spends his life ferrying people between city and countryside, watching families come apart and come back together, witnessing small human moments that never make headlines. He isn't a grand or heroic figure, just a gentleman who tried to offer kindness where he could, and the simplicity is what makes the story so powerful. By the time the story glides into its final scene, the ending feels exactly right. Gentle, luminous, and full of quiet acceptance. This was a truly beautiful book for me. The next book I read was Keeper of Lost Children by Sadeqa Johnson. Thank you so much to Simon & Schuster for the arc. This book swept me up almost immediately, opening in the wreckage of post-war Germany, where Ethel stumbles across a group of mixed-race children trailing behind a nun. That moment hit especially hard, shaped by Ethel's deep longing for a child and her grief after years of infertility. From there, the story follows her determination to create a safe future for children society has cast aside. Children who have already endured far more than any child should. Johnson doesn't soften the brutal truths this mother faced, and I found myself sitting with their impossible choices long after I closed the book. The narrative then widens to introduce Ozzie Phillips in 1948, who quickly realizes that serving his country overseas doesn't shield him from the racism he hoped to escape. His relationship with Yelka brings warmth into a world still fractured by war, but it also places him in a situation with no easy way out, one filled with quiet sacrifices and impossible decisions. Then we move to 1965, where Sophia Clark is given the chance to attend an elite boarding school in Maryland. Watching her reach for that opportunity while carrying the weight of her past and navigating the assumptions of her peers made me root for her instantly. Each of these stories feels distinct, yet the emotional echoes between them build slowly and deliberately across time. By the time their timelines began to converge, I was honestly a mess in the best possible way. I had my suspicions about how everything might connect, but Johnson reveals the final pieces with such care and precision that I still gasp when the truth slid into place. The characters feel deeply layered, the themes of love, loss, and belonging are handled with so much intention, and the final pages left me with tears in my eyes and that rare feeling that I had just read something truly special. In terms of this spread, the entire sticker book that I'm using is from Journal Say. The next book I read was Weavingshaw by Heba Al-Wasity. Thank you so much to Del Rey for gifting me a copy of this book. This is a striking gothic romantasy debut, though I do want to mention upfront that it leans much more plot forward than romance forward. What immediately pulled me in was the atmosphere and the voice. The writing is lush and poetic without tipping into purple prose, and the setting does so much heavy lifting in the best possible way. From the fog-choked streets to the cursed estate of Weavingshaw itself, everything feels alive, watching, waiting. There's a sense of rot and history baked into every scene, and that weight really lingered with me long after I put the book down. Lena is a fantastic protagonist, sharp, stubborn, and fiercely devoted to her brother, even when the devotion cost her everything. Her ability to see the dead is handled with real care. It never feels like a gimmick, but rather something isolating and dangerous in a world that's quick to lock away what it doesn't understand. The deal she strikes with the Saint of Silence is where the story truly shines. Saint Silas is magnetic, unsettling, and impossible to fully trust, and the tension between him and Lena is absolutely off the charts. The yearning here is intense, but deliciously restrained, simmering quietly beneath every interaction. I also really appreciated how the ghosts, demons, and secrets of Weavingshaw are woven into a larger commentary on greed, colonialism, and the true cost of power. My only real struggle with this book was the pacing. This is very much a slow, plot-first romantasy, and there were moments where I wished the story would move just a little faster. That said, the intrigue never faded, and the mystery kept pulling me forward even when the burn was slow. The plot genuinely feels original, the themes are thoughtfully handled, and that cliffhanger was downright cruel. I'm already impatient for the next installment, because if this is just the beginning, I cannot wait to see just how much darker and more tangled this world becomes. Now, in terms of the spread, I was heavily inspired by the cover of this book because it's just stunning, and so I wanted to draw out the castle or manor of Weavingshaw. I created this Dutch door style so that when you open it up, that's where my review is going to hide. I used my black Posca marker to draw out everything, and then I went over it first with my white pencil just to give it a little bit more highlights, and it just gives it a little bit more of a 3D effect. I then used my white jelly roll to draw out the windows for the castle. To create more of like a light effect behind the windows, I went over it with my white pencil. I noticed that the pencil wasn't really giving too much of a highlight, and it was kind of blending in with the rest of my black background, and so I went over it one more time with my white Posca marker instead, just to give it a little bit more of an effect. One of the windows has like a warm yellowy tone to it, so I just went over it with my yellow pencil, colored pencil, to just give it that shine effect. And then I also used the same pencil to draw out the flames in the lanterns. Now, very carefully, I used my X-Acto knife to cut around the castle just so that it gives it that Dutch door effect. Be extra careful here not to cut yourself or cut the binding of the notebook. I felt like the top part was a little bit empty, and so I decided to go over it with this gorgeous lace washi tape from the washi tape shop. And then on the top, I just went over it with my Simply Gilded Black Star washi tape. For the title, I mimicked the same font that the book cover has, and I just wrote out the title of it, and I used my gold jelly roll to color it in. And this was my review for this book. I'm obsessed with the little Dutch door, it looks so cool. The next book I read was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, and this one ended up being my favorite book of December. Originally, I rated this book 4.5 stars, but I just could not stop thinking about it after I finished it, so I slowly, inevitably crept up to a full 5 stars. My start with this book was a little rocky. I began with a physical copy and struggled to really sink into the story. But the moment I switched to the audiobook, everything clicked. The narration is flawless and brings this world to life in a way that feels completely tailor-made for Abercrombie's voice and humor. Once it hit its stride, I was fully locked in. At its core, this book is a twisted Anastasia-style setup filtered through a grimy, morally bankrupt lens. A street urchin named Alex discovers she's actually Princess Alexia, heir to the Empire of Troy, and must be escorted back to claim her throne by the Chapel of the Holy Expediency, better known as the Devils. Think fairy tale royalty paired with a Suicide Squad style escort, and somehow it absolutely works. The writing and world building are sharp, vivid, and confident, and the dry humor landed for me again and again. This is easily one of the most entertaining, fun fantasy reads I've had in a long time. Beneath the jokes, there's still a pointed exploration of organized religion, discarded people, and who society decides is beyond saving. Where this book truly shines, though, it's in its characters. The ensemble cast is outstanding, and the found family dynamic was a huge win for me. This is absolutely a book best experienced knowing as little as possible, letting each character introduction unfold naturally. I cannot wait to see what the next adventure for the characters of this book is. The next book I read was Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. Thank you so much to Libro FM for the ALC. I went into Good Spirits with pretty high expectations, mostly because I'd seen so much love for it everywhere. So landing at 3.5 stars surprised me a bit. This is a cute, cozy holiday story with a clever Ghost of Christmas Past angle, but it didn't quite grab me in the way I was hoping. The setup has a lot going for it. Nolan Callahan is a long-dead ghost just trying to finish his assignments and finally move on, and I really liked him as a lead. Pairing him with Harriet York, who is painfully kind, emotionally worn down, and very stuck in her routines, felt full of potential. The trips down memory lane were often sweet and quietly emotional, and on paper the story should have been a win for me. Where I struggled was with the execution. Harriet's reaction to being haunted was so calm, and it tipped into disbelief almost immediately, and that pulled me out of the story right away. The rules surrounding Nolan's existence also felt pretty fuzzy. I kept getting distracted trying to understand how he could be both a visible presence around town and very much dead. The romance unfortunately didn't work for me either. It leaned hard into insta-love without enough emotional build-up to really sell it. Nolan's intense attraction after only a couple of encounters felt exaggerated, and some of the fantasizing came off more unnecessary than romantic. I also found myself bored in stretches, which genuinely surprised me because this author usually delivers such warm, lively stories. That said, this wasn't a total miss. Harriet's family dynamics really hit a nerve, especially her sister, who made my blood boil, and the sense of holiday loneliness Harriet carries felt very real. The ending finally delivered the emotional payoff I'd been waiting for, complete with a twist and a visit from a very meaningful ghost that softened me right up. While this wasn't a new favorite for me, I can absolutely see other readers loving the cozy Christmas vibes, the found family moments, and the touch of magic throughout. And honestly, it did leave me craving a candy cane, which feels like a small seasonal win. In other news, I ended up getting a Cricut to myself for Christmas, and so I'm slowly been experimenting with it, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So a lot of the stickers that you see in the spread, I just got them from Canva, and I just printed them on sticker paper and used my Cricut to cut around it as a sticker. And I really love how it came out. I'm still trying to experiment, like I said, so if you have any tips, feel free to put them in the comment. I'm always eager to learn more. The next book I read was The Bookbinder Secret by A.D. Bell. Thank you so much to St. Martin Press and NetGalley for the arc. I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars, but I was genuinely intrigued by the setup going in. The story follows Lillian Delaney, an apprentice bookbinder in Oxford in 1901, who's caught between her duty to her struggling father and a profession that barely makes room for women at all. When she discovers a burned book hiding fragments of a 50-year-old love story tangled up with murder, she's pulled into a dangerous trail of rare books, secret letters, and collectors who are far more threatening than they first appear. The historical detail is easily this book's strongest feature. The sections focus on bookbinding, restoration, and the obsessive world of collectors are richly textured and atmospheric, and they gave the story a real sense of place that kept me turning pages even when other elements faltered. The mystery itself, split between Lily's present-day investigation and the tragic romance of the past, is where the book both shines and struggles. I found myself far more invested in the earlier love story than in Lily's own personal arc, even though that storyline leans heavily into melodrama and some familiar tropes, including an overused pregnancy plot. As the book went on, the pacing also began to drag. The structure repeats itself with each newly discovered book, and over time the repetition made the constant loss feel exhausting rather than suspenseful. I also struggled with the amount of telling versus showing, particularly in the hidden pages of the mystery. Moments that should have felt emotionally devastating or revelatory stayed oddly distant, which kept me from fully connecting with the story's core. Where the book lost me the most, though, was the romance in Lily's life. The love triangle between a childhood sweetheart and a brief affair never felt earned, largely because neither man was developed enough to matter. Overall, the mystery was intriguing enough to carry me through the end, but the resolution ultimately left me disappointed. The last book I read in December was The Healing Hippo of Hinode Park by Michiko Aoyama. This was my read around the world stop for Japan, and thank you so much to LibreFM for the ALC. The story is set around a small playground tucked beneath a 5-story apartment building where an old hippo ride named Kabahiko has earned the nickname the Healing Hippo. According to local legend, if you touch the part of the hippo that matches your pain, whether physical or emotional, things might start to get better. Over the course of the book, a variety of residents are drawn to this quiet little space. A stressed student, a lonely new mother, an aging neighbor, each carrying something heavy and hoping just a little for relief. The setup is simple, almost storybook-like, but the simplicity creates such a comforting space for these characters to pause and admit what they're struggling with. The novel unfolds as a series of loosely connected short stories, and while the hippo gives the book its hook, it isn't really the point. This isn't traditional magical realism where miracles are clearly happening. Instead, the hippo feels more like a symbol, or maybe just an excuse, for people to finally look inward and lean on the support around them. The tone throughout is warm, thoughtful, and gently whimsical, without tipping into sentimentality. It's not a particularly complex or surprising book, and at times the messages are fairly on the nose. This is the kind of cozy, almost therapeutic read that works best when you want something soft and human. A reminder that healing often comes from being seen, heard, and supported, even in the smallest of ways. And with that, we've come to the end of my December reading journal, and at the end of my 2025 reading year. This month, and honestly this whole year, reminded me that reading doesn't have to be about perfect stats or hitting every goal. It can be messy, surprising, comforting, and sometimes a little unfinished. These books each found me exactly when I needed them, and I'm really grateful for the time I spent with their stories. Thank you so much for spending this quiet corner of the internet with me, whether you're journaling alongside me, adding books to your TBR, or just enjoying the cozy vibes. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, or stick around for more reading journals, cozy bookish content, and reflections as we turn the page into a new year. Happy reading and happy journaling!